In this video, I'm going to be looking at the subject of, is Thorpe Park the best theme park in the United Kingdom as of 2024? Now, I can well imagine that there will be people sat watching this laughing at me right now thinking, no chance. But right now, I think there's a genuine case for Thorpe Park being classed as the best theme park in the United Kingdom in 2024. So hello, I'm Scott. Thank you for choosing to watch Your Experience Guide. Thorpe Park then, is it the best in the United Kingdom? Well, let's start with their roller coaster supremacy, because in my opinion, they do have the best roller coaster lineup in the UK as far as thrill coasters go. Now, I think it would be fair to say that as far as family attractions go, Thorpe Park doesn't have the strongest roller coaster lineup. But when it comes to thrill coasters, which is what I'm interested in, I think that Thorpe Park has by far the best roller coaster lineup in the United Kingdom right now. And for me, that contributes to them being the best theme park in the UK. But there's many more reasons to it just than the coasters. But for now, I'm going to start with their, what I'm calling, roller coaster supremacy. As you drive into Thorpe Park, it's always been an impressive skyline. Before Hyperia, obviously there was Stealth, Swarm, Colossus, Soar, all roller coasters that you would see on the skyline as you drive into the park. And it's always given me the impression of, if we ever got a Six Flags park or a Cedar Fair park in this country, that's what it'd be like driving into their parks. And that is what it is like driving into their parks in America. They've got big tall coasters on the skyline. You drive in onto the car park, you've got a big impressive line of sight straight away. You're looking at all these big tall coasters and you're thinking, I am in for a good day. And it's always a bit like that at Thorpe Park with their skyline. And of course, Hyperia has only added to that. So what I'm saying is here, is Thorpe Park's always had a thrilling lineup of roller coasters ever since you go back to when they put Colossus and Nemesis Inferno in, and then they had their rapid expansion of building something every season. I know not everybody's going to agree with this, but for me, they do have the most thrilling lineup of roller coasters. You could go as far as saying, and I know no one's going to agree with this, they actually have three of the best, if not the best, roller coasters in the UK in Hyperia, Stealth, and Nemesis Inferno. Now, I always think that Nemesis Inferno gets a lot of stick for a roller coaster that is actually really, really good. And I think if it didn't have the Nemesis name in there, it probably would get a lot more appreciation. But there's no doubt that Hyperia has further raised the bar at Thorpe Park. They already had a great lineup of roller coasters, but now it's gone even higher, it's even better, and it just takes it even further clear of all of the competition in the UK as far as the thrill coaster lineup goes. As well as those three roller coasters, there is of course the Swarm, something that is always popular, something that is always brought up in top 10, top 5 conversations as far as the UK roller coaster lineup goes. And of course it is very unique in this country as well. We've got nothing else like it, and it is something that seems to be getting better with age. I remember when it first opened, I thought it was quite boring, the Swarm, but over time it seems to have got more intense, more enjoyable. It just seems to be a better roller coaster now, 12 years from when it first opened. I never really thought it was that good. Then, of course, there is Colossus. Up until 2022, it was very much a unique concept in this country. A 10 looping coaster. There was nothing else like it. And to be fair, a lot of the people who visit Thorpe Park probably have no idea about the fact that Sick exists up in Flamingo Land with almost the same layout, better trains. And to be fair, Sick is a better version of that coaster. But who's really going to be thinking about that if your only theme park visit is Thorpe Park? If you live in the south, you're not going to be thinking about Flamingo Land, and that is a valuable asset to Thorpe Park. I know a lot of enthusiasts don't really like Colossus, and I'm not a massive fan of it. I think it's quite uncomfortable with the big bulky restraints, but there's no doubt about it, it's an excellent coaster for this country to have. It's an excellent coaster for Thorpe Park to have. It's very popular. It's a spectacle. People love watching it. People love going on it. And not forgetting as well, there is Soar, the Gerstlauer Eurofighter. Now, I don't like this coaster, I've got to be honest. I find it a little bit uncomfortable, and it's just not my type of roller coaster. But again, it adds to the lineup at Thorpe Park perfectly. It fits in with the theming perfectly. It's a torture device. If you're a horror fan, a Saw fan, you're going to want to go on that coaster. You're going to love it. And on the subject of horror, they've got the Walking Dead coaster as well. So as well as having the thrill side of it covered, they've also got the horror side of it covered on the coasters as well. I'm sure you could class Saw as a thrill coaster. Like I say, for me, it's not one of my favourites, but it's a solid attraction. People love it. It's always popular. And I think the theming definitely helps. Of course, The Walking Dead, same situation. That is probably a family coaster, but it's got the horror theme. So again, you've got 2 rides there for the horror fanatics. You've got 4 other coasters there in Swarm, Stealth, Hyperia and Inferno. Thrill coasters. Saw, a thrill coaster with a horror theme. Walking Dead, family coaster, horror theme. Then of course you've got Flying Fish, which is for the younger thrill seekers out there. But as far as the overall package of roller coasters at Thorpe Park goes, for me, they have the best thrill coaster lineup in the United Kingdom. And to be really controversial, I'd say that Blackpool Pleasure Beach has the second best lineup of thrill coasters, with Alton Towers in 3rd place. Moving away from Thorpe Park's roller coaster supremacy, they also have a good lineup of supporting attraction, whether that be thrill rides, water rides, an interactive ride in the ghost train, or other attractions around the park for people to do when they're not riding the roller coasters. One big criticism we've seen of Alton Towers and Blackpool Pleasure Beach, especially over recent years, is that they have removed a lot of flat rides and not replaced them. As well as that, there has been walk-through attractions, dark ride attractions, or other attractions that would support the roller coasters at both Towers and Pleasure Beach that have been removed over recent years. Now, the same thing at Thorpe Park happened with Slammer, but in terms of their supporting attractions, they do still have a lot of their flat rides open. They do still have a lot of water rides, and there is a lot to do when you're not on the roller coasters. Prime examples here are Rush, Samurai, Vortex, Zodiac, Quantum, Tidal Wave, Storm Surge, the Rapids, the Ghost Train, the 4D Cinema, Detonator. There is so much more to do at Thorpe Park other than just their roller coasters, and this is what helps them be a good, balanced theme park. Again, I can imagine people are laughing at me right now saying there's no chance they're not a balanced theme park, they've not got enough for families. I'll get onto that in a bit. But as far as thrill rides go, and water rides go, and roller coasters go, I really do think they have the overall best lineup in the UK. And I know other parks are going to be expanding on what they've got. We've seen that Alton Towers building a new flat ride. Poulton's Park are probably going to be working towards adding some more thrill stuff soon. They've got their dark ride attraction opening next year, I think it is. There's talk they're going to open a new coaster, potentially talk of another water attraction opening there. So Poulton's Park are on the up. They're a great park anyway, but at the minute they're not a thrill park, they're a family park. Obviously there's talk of Blackpool Pleasure Beach getting this new roller coaster. So all these parks in the UK are doing something, but right now, for me, Thorpe Park has the best lineup for thrill rides and supporting attractions in the UK. Now I know at the time of upload, end of June, nobody's really going to be thinking about this, but it's worth a mention that right now, and over the last 5, 6, maybe 7 or 8 years, Thorpe Park's Halloween offering is the best in the UK. Fright Nights seems to get better every year. When they're thinking about doing their own IPs and not like licensed IPs, their mazes are a lot better. When you think about Creek Freak Massacre, excellent. Stitches last year, excellent. Trailers, excellent. Thorpe Park's Halloween mazes have been great over the last couple of years. But they've also, since COVID, introduced scare zones and more interactive characters as well. And that all adds to a park-wide experience, something that I don't think that we're seeing at Scarefest at Alton Towers, and certainly not at Journey to Hell at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, which to be fair is still a fairly new event, but it's the same thing every year, it doesn't really change. Scarefest got a little bit better last year with a scare zone near Wickerman, but it's still not enough. Whereas Thorpe Park have a good balance again with the mazes and the scare zones. So for me, as well as having the best coasters and a very good lineup of thrill rides, water rides, supporting attractions. They also have the best Halloween offering in a UK theme park. With all that said, it probably looks like I'm building up here to say that Thorpe Park is the perfect theme park. But that's not my opinion. I do believe that Thorpe Park definitely has room for improvement, as does everywhere else. But what I do think is, as far as the roller coasters go, they have the best lineup in the UK. As far as the flat rides go, they have a very good selection. Rush is especially good. You've got Detonator if you like a drop tower. And there's other flat rides there that people will enjoy. For me personally, I'm not a massive fan of flat rides. I'm more of a roller coaster and a water ride person. But if any park's got an Intamin gyro swing, I'm all for it. And I would love to see one of those built at Thorpe Park in the future. Maybe where Vortex is now, I don't know, but I'd certainly like to see one of those in the park in the future. To be fair, I'd like to see one of those at every park. But as far as flat rides go, other than the gyro swings from Intamin, I'm not a massive flat ride fan. I more prefer my roller coasters and my water rides and my dark rides, but still, I see the merit with a flat ride. I see how they're important to a park. I see how they help separate the crowds away from the coasters and the other big attractions. So they're always handy to have. And where other parks have been removing theirs or closing theirs, Thorpe Park, mostly, other than the Slammer, have been keeping theirs going. And then, of course, there's the water rides. Again, a decent selection. You've got Tidal Wave if you want to get soaked. If you don't fancy getting soaked, but you do want to cool off on a hot day, obviously you've got the Rapids, Storm Surge, and Depth Charge, which is not great. But again, it's an option. It's something that you can do. It's one of those attractions that I would really be happy to see replaced at Thorpe Park. I could say the same for Storm Surge as well. I do think that they could actually do something a lot better as far as water rides go to replace those. But right now they've got them and they have a good water ride offering, which again, in my opinion, is better than the water ride offering so far at Alton Towers and Pleasure Beach and at Flamingo Land. And to be fair, at most parks, Thorpe Park have the better water ride selection. So for me, even though Thorpe Park get a lot of stick for their ride lineup, I'm looking at this thinking they've got the best roller coaster lineup, they've probably got the best flat ride selection, they've got the best water ride section. But where do they lack? Well, dark rides. Obviously, as far as dark rides go, we've got an interactive walkthrough dark ride type experience in the Ghost Train. Previously, Derren Brown's Ghost Train was well known for its downtime and its problems. Got the reimagining for last year. Do I think it's better now as it is than it was? Probably, because I just don't like the headsets that you had to wear. I think the interaction with the actors and the story is decent. Do I think that Thorpe Park need another dark ride attraction in their park to complement Ghost Train? Probably. Maybe a traditional Ghost Train somewhere in the park, but they couldn't call it Ghost Train, obviously. But something along those lines would help the lineup. One of the criticisms that I often see about Thorpe Park's lineup is they don't have enough family rides. Now, even as a parent of a 6-year-old, I don't have a problem with this because nearby, operated by the same group, you've got Legoland, which is a family park, and Chessington, which is a family park. And then about an hour away, you've got Poulton's Park, another family park. So for me, Thorpe Park doesn't need to be a family park. It needs to be a thrill park. We need thrill parks in this country. We've got a lot of family parks, which is great. I have no issue with that. But we need something like Thorpe Park to be a thrill park for those of us that do want to do the big coasters. And I would understand if, say, Thorpe Park was in Alton Towers location and people were saying they don't have enough to do as a family because there's not a lot else near Alton Towers. Obviously, Drayton Manor's probably about an hour away. But as far as Thorpe Park goes, when you've got Legoland and Chessington and Poulton's Park all close to it, there's no need for Thorpe Park to be a family park as well as them parks being a family park. One last subject to think about here is theming. For what it is, I think it's fine. I don't think they need to go over the top on theming. If they're going to have a dark ride, let's say, then yeah, go over the top with theming. But as far as Hyperia goes, it's stylized as it is. It works. It's a hyper coaster. Can you really theme a hyper coaster? Do you need to theme a hyper coaster? A hyper coaster should be able to sell itself on its height and what it does and not theming. Whereas things like the Swarm, it's got fairly good theming. Inferno, fairly good. Stealth works really well, has a brilliant atmosphere around that area. Obviously, it's not got big, heavy theming, but it's styled, works perfectly. Same with Colossus. Saw's well themed, Walking Dead's well themed. So I think they do a good job with it. I don't think they need to go to Disney levels, Universal levels of theming. Let's hopefully leave that to Universal when they come to the UK in 2030, if that's going to happen. So this is where I'd love to see some interaction from everybody watching. Do you think Thorpe Park is the best theme park in the UK? Or are you sat there like this going, no, Scott, you have got this totally wrong. Thorpe Park isn't the best theme park in the UK. So if you agree with me or disagree with me or have a neutral opinion, I'd love to read it in the comment section below. I know right now, my friend Stephen, who is in our vlogs a lot this year and last year, is watching this going, absolutely not, you've got this wrong. So yeah, please let me know in the comment section below. I'm really interested to see where everyone thinks has the best roller coasters, the best selection of thrill rides, the best water rides, and where is the best park in the UK in 2024. Please do let me know in the comment section below. Many thanks for watching. Please give us a like. It's a little thumbs up below. Please subscribe. There's loads to come, especially from America. I'll see you next time.